Is
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Co-Creation Station, the podcast where we talk about the law of attraction, the art of allowing, spiritual magic, the mind-body-spirit connection, and how to best enjoy this mystical, miraculous, mysterious, crazy, sometimes confounding, but always incredible journey we call life. My name is Collin, and I'm located in beautiful, sunny North Hollywood, California.
Hi everyone, my name is Stephanie Orlina. I'm a transformational life coach and I am in San Diego, California.
Thank you so much for listening or watching, whichever you're doing today. Just want to let you know, we often mention Abraham Hicks and Esther Hicks on this podcast. If you are not familiar with those names, Esther is a speaker and author who channels Abraham. Abraham is described as a group of entities from beyond our physical world who share their wisdom by speaking through Esther at workshops and speaking opportunities around the world. You can find more about them online at Abraham-Hicks.com. All right. Each week we start our discussion from a different jumping off point. And this week, Stephanie, at the very end of our friend time, started to say, I've been thinking about, and so I just hit record. So now that we've got the intro out of the way, I'll let you continue your sentence.
Okay. So we went and saw Dr. Chris on Monday, and it must have been the day before on Sunday where I came to this realization, because I'm having some contrast. And for those of you who are not sure what contrast is when we're having an experience that there's things that we don't like. Things are happening and this doesn't feel good at all. And so, I recently moved, and the woman I rent a room from, her dogs bark a lot. And we're working on it and it's still an issue. And so it came to me on Sunday where I'm like, I really have to pay attention to what I'm thinking and focusing on, because I can get into a space where I'm really thinking about, oh my God, the dogs bark so much, and go down that, dark hole, and it affects how I feel. It affects my point of attraction. How is that making me feel? It makes me feel horrible. And I'm doing it to myself. I even realize when they've stopped barking, I'm still thinking about it. And I caught myself, I was like, Steph, you're thinking about it. They're not barking right now. What are you doing? And so and so it dawned on me. There were many, many years ago where I had my personal assistant business, and I had this client who was really challenging to work for. He I just never knew what his personality is going to be like. He could be fine one moment and then he just starts raging. I worked in his home. I would, pay their bills, do different things, basically like a secretary, companion, blah, blah, blah. And I really needed the work. And so I had made the decision to not quit, but I was like, oh my God, what the F am I going to do? This is super hard. And then I started listening to more Abraham, because if I listened to them, I felt better. And that made me feel a little bit better. So when I was there, and then after weeks and weeks and maybe a month, I don't remember how long, I remember getting to this, it must've been months. I got to this place where I would put on my earbuds and just listen to music. I got to a point where I didn't care how he was. I knew I was going to be fine. I just didn't, he could go off and do whatever, whatever, that's your thing. And it was such a gift, because what it helped me do was learn to focus. And it helped me to see that I was in charge of my point of attraction. I was the one who was going to determine what I was going to think about, and not let what was going around me affect me. And I just got chills. And I remember thinking, I'm never going to tell him that he was the thing that helped me get to this point. And then one day we're sitting out on his balcony and we're chatting, and he goes, how did you get so confident, grounded and secure? And I just kind of looked at him and was like, do you really want to know? And he's like, yeah. And I go, it was you. He goes, what do you mean? I go, you were such an asshole. And he goes, yeah. He goes, I've been told that before.
Not new information.
Yeah. And so, he ended up being a blessing in disguise, because at that point I wasn't really coaching. I was doing mostly personal assistant business. And when I, was practicing all this Abraham material, I shifted. I remember walking with a friend one day, and she's like, she'd known me for a little while, and she said, "You're really different." I go, "Really?" She goes, "Yeah." And I realized it was all that work that I had done with Abraham and practicing the art of allowing. So now, come present day, last Sunday, it dawned on me like, oh my God, Steph, this is kind of like a dentist thing. Like, we're being given an opportunity to really get focused on our point of attraction and what I think about and my thoughts and like where I'm putting my attention. And I was like, oh my God. Cause like we can all get sloppy, right? Like, and and I think what's happened, because I've had so many changes and everything in the past few months, that I'm really starting to get settled. I've been happier more, and doing more things that I hadn't been able to do for a while. And just coming to this realization, like, oh yeah, take your power back, stuff. So I wanted to talk about that, like, um how I give my power away when it's an outside thing.
Mm.
I was giving all my attention to the, oh my God, the dog's barking. It's like, oh, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, wait a minute, uh, like I can think about something else. They're not barking 24/7. I'm not here 24/7, and yes, it is an issue. I'm handling it. But what am I thinking about? What am I focused on?
Yeah, that's a great point of emphasis in I think when I'm trying to learn how to get better at practicing the art of allowing so that I'm working with law of attraction the best way possible for me because I think I understand at this stage that everything I'm attracting into my life is about my vibration, which results either from my thoughts or my feelings or both. Um, but it does seem a lot still. Like I used to think before I learned about the law of attraction, I used to think everything happening in my life was other people's fault. Um, so now I understand that that's erroneous, but it does. I still do have these times where it feels like someone else, which could be an individual, it could be a company, it could be a business or something or a group or whatever, but like is doing something in my life I really don't like, and it's clearly something outside myself. So how can I be blamed for it? And I guess what I try to practice now is like, well, because when I listen to that, it's like, well, first of all, if I'm going to just focus on who should be blamed, me or the other person, like this is not a productive.
Right.
That's not going to
Yeah.
take us where we want to go. And that's not to say I understand there are times, everybody's in a different point on their journey, dealing with different things. It doesn't mean that we shouldn't hold others responsible for
Oh
their own
yeah,
actions,
absolutely.
all that. But in terms of like getting my life to go from a direction I don't want more in the direction of something I do, or allowing in more of what I do want,
Yes. Yeah.
I really do need to take my focus off whatever that person or outside entity is and
Yes.
go, okay, because number one thing I do understand, I don't always remember it, but I do understand is like I can't control other people. I can
Right.
communicate with other people. I can sometimes influence other people, but I can't control them. So the one thing I have direct control over is my own choices in terms of what I'm thinking and feeling. Now that sounds really easy. Um, I find it
Or
still
it doesn't.
well, just saying the phrase like, "Oh, you control your thoughts, so just change your mind."
Yeah.
And that sounds easy when I say it, but yeah, in practice, I've really noticed ever since I started learning about this stuff that, like, if I have a pen in one hand and I say I'm going to put this pen down, I can put the pen down, and the pen does not magically try to fly up into my hand. You know, but when I put a thought down, what often happens is my brain goes, oh, hey, here's that thought, and it flies right back. You know,
Yeah.
so it takes more practice for me to mentally let go of thoughts or change the channel, as you say, switch from focusing on one thought to another thought, because my brain does have some circuitry
Yeah, of
built on
course.
its own,
Yeah.
bring something back to me when I'm like, hey, I just put that thought down. Why the F did you just bring it back? I told you I didn't want to think about it, brain. Why?
And that's why, well, because momentum, right? Depending on how much momentum, how long we've been thinking about it,
Yes.
And
And
then the other thing
habit, like
is,
long-standing habits. Yeah.
yeah. And then the other thing is, I would always ask you, okay, tell me, well, not always, but I would ask you, what are the 5 things that when you think about them, you almost always feel good? 5, not 4, but 5. And you had your list, you told me, and then with each one I'd be like, well, why do you like it? What is it about it?
Mhm.
And so I had my list, and last weekend I had a really good weekend, and so when there was contrast happening in my surroundings, I would be like, okay, tell me something good, like what? And then I'd go back to those different events that had happened. Like I spent the day with Nibbles one day, my grand dog, and we went exploring and had some really wonderful moments. I got on Friday, a week ago Friday, I celebrated my friend's birthday with her, and we went hiking and we got a massage and we went to lunch, and it was fantabulous. And I went and saw that same massage person again, and it was amazing. So now I have a massage person that I love, to go, get a massage from, and just again, it's a practice, right? Going back to, okay, what feels good, what subjects, what experiences, and going back to them. Because I know a lot of us, because it's a habit, we all do it, is we go back to that one thing and talk about it incessantly about what we don't like, what happened that we didn't like. And yet I feel so uncomfortable. It's, for a lot of people, it's foreign to talk about the same thing, talk about something else that was really good over and over again. Like my mind does it, and I have a feeling other people do, is that I repeat something that was really good, like, well, you already told me that. But yet, when someone talks about something bad that happened, I think because that's where the brain is trying to fix it's a problem solver.
Yeah.
And that's probably why we do that.
Yeah, I read something a while ago that's stuck with me, but it's been really challenging to practice, which is like when you're catching up with a friend, maybe you haven't seen in a week or two, and you start talking about things like how are things going. If something in your life is going well, our habit usually is just to go, work's good. How's your husband? Husband's good. How are the kids? Kids are doing great. How's the car? Oh my God, what a saga. So we had this accident, da, 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 you know what I mean? It's just like, that's
Yeah.
where we're trained to like put the detail. It's like, well, I don't
Yeah.
have any stories about the good stuff. I just have this the ungodly story about the accident and like trying to get it
But we
fixed.
do have stories, right? We do
Well,
have
this is the thing that I
stories.
read, which said that if somebody tells you something's going well, instead of either just taking the bait to like focus on something they tell you is not going well, or to do the thing that a lot of us do, which is we just compete with our story of, oh, your car, oh, I had this car 7 years ago, let me tell you about how terrible
Yeah.
that was. Instead of doing that, take something that somebody said was going well and say, tell me more about that.
Yeah,
you
I've
know
heard you say that before. Yeah.
yeah, and it's
When you're
really
in
hard.
conversation with others.
It's really
Yeah.
hard because I have to give up the focus on myself, which we're all kind of we have some degrees of egotism, and we
No,
like
we're
talking
just
about
all
ourselves.
self-centered. It's
Yeah,
okay. We are. That's just how we're built. It's okay. It gets a bad rap, but it depends on to what degree.
yeah. So one, I have to give up focusing on myself, but the other thing is I have to go against that grain of the brain, yeah, that's more interested in problems, dangers, and threats, and say, oh, the kids are doing great. That's great. What specifically are they doing great at? Or how is this one kid that you have? How are they liking their new teacher or something like that? And oh, they actually love that teacher. They are just blossoming and everything. this thing happened the other day they told me about where they were doing this exercise and blah blah, and not, you know, and choosing to go with that. And again, it's, I think my only, I feel like a broken record um, when I say this, because I don't really have any other fancy or ways when people ask me, well, how do you do that? When your habit is just to focus on the negative and to, you know, oh, you had a terrible car story. Let me tell you my terrible car story. And the only thing I can say is just practice. You know, you're not going
It
to remember
is.
to do it all the time,
Nope.
but when you do remember it, do it, and just
Yeah.
trust that like you're paving a new, you know, neural
A
pathway.
neuro pathway. Exactly.
And
Yeah.
eventually it will come, you know, more and more, you know,
Because
familiar. But it's going to be
actually,
unfamiliar at first because honestly, like,
and that happens with children because we've already been there on that side that we're trying to get back to
yeah,
once again, is children are automatically babies. And, you know, up until like probably, I've seen it with my grandkids and my nieces. I don't remember so much with my nephew because I wasn't really into it that much. But once they got into school, that's when their joy began to slip away.
mm, yeah,
Because when they were like 2, 3, 4, super happy, like, you know, they focused on the good
yeah,
mostly, because that's where we originate from. And it wasn't until they started going to school that they started getting this different programming. And I
mm,
noticed they just, their joy became less,
mm,
and all the other opposite things began to take part of their personality and
yeah,
presence. And it made me really sad. And so we were there before, so
yeah,
we can get back there again, because it was just all these years of programming that wasn't good. You know, it was a lot of negative, you should follow these rules, do this, and taking away from our innate knowing of what's right and wrong, and what feels good, what doesn't, and that we would just naturally direct to things that, you know, feel
yeah.
better.
The other funny thing about that, and again, I'm going to make some, you know, classic overgeneralizations here, but I think most people will relate. Um, so I feel like every one of us has someone in their life who is like a chronic complainer, or you had it at one time. That just this chronic complaining person who just anytime like you, and also most of us have had at least one person in our life who is kind of, as an adult, is like sort of unnaturally super happy all the time, and like doesn't tell you about the car accident, doesn't tell you about the terrible thing with the car mechanic, and actually tells you really fun happy stories all the time. And what's interesting about that to me is everybody dreads the talking to a constant complainer friend. Like nobody is like, oh, I love talking to, you know, Susan. All she does is complain all day. It's so great. Like who says that? I'm what I hear a lot is like, oh, I gotta go to my aunt's house to help her with her medicine, and oh, she just
So
complains.
what happens if you have two chronic complainers? Do they like each other? Do they compete? Like what? I wonder what that dynamics is. That would be
Well, I don't know how
hilarious.
much time we should spend on that, but
Just
yeah,
came to mind. Yeah.
I definitely in
There's
my
probably one of
experience.
them going like, "Oh God, I don't like to talk to her."
Well, I think people who like to complain are happy to have an audience. I think there is a comic thing that can happen where they're compete.
They're competing.
I've probably participated in that myself, but I've definitely
I could
observed it.
see it more with two older men.
Competing. Yeah. You know, like, oh, you think that's bad? Let
Yeah,
me
then yeah, they just
know.
feed off each other.
But I think it's more like, you know, when someone is genuinely positive all the time, what I mostly hear is, oh, I love Jane. She's just so happy all the time. Like she's just a ray of sunshine who comes in, you know. And I'm like, so we all, for the most part, know that we don't like the constant complainers. We know that we like the person who's got the positive attitude. So why are we not trying to become like, you know, Jane, the super positive person? Why are we kind of staying mired in these, like, you know, not as bad as the constant complainer, but ourselves complaining a lot in our own minds, complaining to our family, complaining to our friends, complaining about whatever. And again, I think it's more just like A, it's habit.
Yeah.
B, it's easier because our brains are set up for finding and analyzing and trying to solve like problems. Um,
So let me ask you, what are your 5 things? I know one of them for sure.
I
What are
think, sorry,
your
I
five
missed that.
things? What are your 5 things that, because they've probably changed since we were working together many years ago.
I doubt it highly.
But what are your 5 things that when you think about them, you almost always feel good?
Oh, I thought you were gonna go the other way. Like, what are the 5 things? Like,
No,
you just go
no.
straight down and then start complaining. I was like, oh, those I got right here. Um,
Oh,
5 things that always give me joy.
almost always when you think about them, you feel good.
I think my favorite movies.
Mm,
My sister.
mm.
I guess I would say one of them is like my sister, you, and Mary, like my 3 best friends. I
Yeah,
would
yeah.
say that um, Dungeons and Dragons.
That's the one I'm like, I know this
Yeah,
definitely in there.
I mean, there's a lot of stuff actually. The good news is now it's like a long list. You know, this used to be really hard for me, but now it's like, oh, which ones do I pick? What the top 5 would be? I mean, one of them would be music. You know, my favorite
Yeah,
music, my
yeah,
favorite bands, and favorite songs.
yeah.
Um, and I think I'll just randomly pick like my favorite place to visit ever is Washington D.C.
Oh
It's
wow,
just like my favorite place
cool.
to visit. So anytime I think about visiting there, I always get
Mm,
positive.
nice. I like that list.
How about you?
Thank you. Um, Nibbles, my grand dog.
Mm. If
Tiger.
I had pets of my own, they would be like
Yeah,
however
Tiger.
many.
Well, these are not mine, but they're
Yeah.
close. My my old next door neighbor is cat, Tiger. Pine trees. Love, love,
Mm.
love pine trees. Clouds, like a blue sky with clouds. Oh,
Mhm.
it's like oh. Um, the ocean.
Mm.
Stand-up comedy, man, just
Oh, so
like
good. Yeah, I feel. Oh man, now I feel like I should revise my list.
yeah, laughing, like,
Yeah.
and you know what's another one is like, my ex and I, like one of the things we did really well, which is funny because the first vacation we ever took was a little bit of a fiasco, but we holidayed well together. So I feel like I have like 10 vacations that we took that are just
Mm.
outstanding because I would be in the vortex. He'd come along in the vortex with me, and we would just, man. Remember my ex sister-in-law saying, "You guys really have some like really good vacation, like things always have like really cool stuff." And I'm like,
You
yeah, huh.
do.
Yeah.
Over the course of just being friends with you, I've been very impressed. You consistently vacationed and consistently had amazing vacations like no one I've ever met.
Like Vancouver was when we went
Yeah.
to British Columbia. That was amazing. And it was funny because it ended up being a condo. It was an apartment. He found this condo and it was like an incredible price, especially because they were redoing it at the time. And I'm like, oh, but when we finally got there, it was completely redone. But it was funny because on the other side, I don't know if there wasn't a highway. There's a big road next to us. And then on the other side of the road next to us was a train yard. So, oh my God, I get to hear the train blow. And it was cute because the night before we left, I got chills. Around 11 o'clock, the train blew its horn and I felt like it was saying bye to me. It was like so cool. And then there was an A&W root beer place down the street, like 2 blocks away. And I went in there and they literally had mugs that were like 9 inches tall, and they brought them out of a freezer. So they were frosty and filled it up with root beer. And I've been to A&W root beer places before, but I've never had that experience. And they do that there. They don't do that in California.
Mm.
Um, and that's where I found the company Freshie, because they had just created one like 2 blocks away. And so I went there for the first time and it was awesome. And then finally they had some in LA, and now we have one or two in San Diego. But yeah, it was
I was gonna say, I
waterfalls.
think
We went in May.
that's a really important thing that I learned a lot from you when I was a client of your coaching, and also from listening to Abraham Hicks workshops and things on YouTube. is really because I think before I started learning about the law of attraction, I knew things I liked, but a lot of them in my life, I would just like wait for them to randomly happen. It's like every now and then this thing I like will happen, and that's great. And what I realized with law of attraction is that it's really helpful for me to know what I like and to do those things, like, and to know the songs that really set me on fire and play those songs. Now
Yeah.
some people just do that naturally. Some people,
That happy friend. Who did you say that woman was?
yeah, Jane.
Jane.
Jane, the person who's always happy. Yeah.
Jane, the happy lady.
Yes. Yes. Um, but I mean, for me, it was really interesting because when I first started learning about the law of attraction, it's like, oh, like, yeah, like there'll be times where like there's something I'd like to do, and I just like wait for it to magically show up in my life instead of like I could just go do that and I will be in a
Yeah,
good mood
I
because I
know,
like
right?
that thing,
Because one of the things that you said to me when I would be like, well, what do you like to like? What is your, because I would always say, like, your little boy, like, what does your
Yeah,
little boy like to do? And you're like, oh, like
mini
catch
golf.
the ball, like,
Mini golf.
go get my mitt,
Oh yeah,
get
play
a
catch too.
baseball. And
Yep.
so you would like go in your backyard and do that. And you're like, oh,
Yeah.
he's so happy. And I'm like, well, go do it.
Yeah. 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 It's like I loved mini golf. I still do, but I love mini golf, and there were
We
times.
went. You kicked my butt too. That's right. We went to Belmont Park.
Yeah, I kick everybody's butt. I'm a mini golf. I'm the Greg Norman of mini golf. No, I'm not. But
that was fun that day at Belmont Park. Oh
no,
my
but it's like
God.
there were
We had a
times where I'd be
blast.
living somewhere where there was a lot of mini golf, and I partly because when I was a kid, my grandmother used to take my sister and I to play mini golf together.
Oh,
But it's like as an adult, I would wait for like mini golf to happen, and every now and then I'd go on a first date or something, and we do
yeah.
mini golf. But like for the most part, it just wouldn't happen. I'm like, there was a point I remember in 2012. I was like, I live currently near like multiple mini
Oh my
golfs,
God, really?
and I'm not working right now. And I'm like, I would just go and play, like, and it would be
Yeah.
amazing, And it's
Yeah.
like, again, it has the twofold thing that I think I'm always looking for with the art of allowing, which is number one, part of the point is just to enjoy each moment of my life. So if I'm doing something that makes me happy, that's the goal of life. Like me playing mini golf is like the goal of life. It's like I'm doing this, I'm happy, like that's my reason for being alive. But the second thing is anytime I'm in that bliss, joy, happiness, just enjoying something, I'm also, you talked about momentum. I'm creating good stuff coming into my life in the future
Pre-paving.
because I've got a positive vibration that's gonna,
Law of attraction, they're responding to it. Yeah, exactly.
So, great discussion. Great topic.
Yes.
Thank you so much for bringing that up. And
You're welcome.
there we go. Thank you so much for joining us for our discussion today. We're so happy you did. Remember, at this time, we are posting a brand new episode for you every Monday morning. We truly appreciate you doing whatever your platform allows you to do to support the podcast. All our social media and our email address are down in the doodly-doo on the YouTube version of this down below. We wish you a happy and abundant week, and we look forward to you joining us again on the next episode of Co-Creation Station. Have a great week, everybody.
Bye.